Welcome to Werewolf the Podcast. This week we meet the werewolf again. He is being rehabilitated by the werecat Vaughn in the professor's house, and the writer, whoever that was, has gone into mass over description of Vaughn. But I'm sorry, that was me. And then we meet the professor as he brings together the group of people who haven't got a clue about what to do. So enjoy, and look in the description and things and see if there's anything you want, or if you want to join us on out, it's dead good. Bye. Will, when I woke up, I didn't really want to be awake. No, fuck being awake. Everything hurt. I wasn't used to it hurting like this as my werewolfy self. I didn't hurt a lot for long, and I'd been a werewolf for all my life. Something was different. The pain was... It was the sort of pain that lets you know you're not quite done with living yet, just being politely asked to reconsider it. The room was dim and warm, the fire in the hearth crackling like it was enjoying a private joke about my suffering. I would allow that it was comforting in that way. The room was the professor's, definitely. The professor liked his rooms like he liked his Latin, archaic, overcomplicated and full of words nobody's used since 434 BC. I wonder just how much money a man can acquire if he's lived 8 centuries. This house, well, no, it's a manor, was something else. My mind came back to the room. There was a faint smell of lavender, polish and book dust, and the gentle clink of a clock that had been ticking so long it probably thought it was keeping time for eternity. I lay there, sheets heavy and soft against my skin, 1,000-strand Egyptian cotton, heavenly, and for a moment I thought I might be dead. There was a bit of a grrr, not from the shadows, but straight to my brain. At least Fenrir was here, and as usual, he was angry. I laughed a little to myself, stopping as my ribcage told me in no uncertain terms to stop with its new moment of explosive agony. I compensated for this by trying to breathe correctly, and the hurt in my ribs just eased to a simple, unbearable ache. Still there, then? I muttered in my mind to the wolf soul.
You shouldn't be,
growled a voice that wasn't exactly in the room, more like in the walls of my bones. Morning, Fen.
Morning. There's nothing of morning in this. You bleed still, you reek of holiness, and I will not forget what those bastards did.
As I've already said, that was Fenrir, Fen to me, my other half, maybe now my worse half, my wolf soul. We've been together since I was a screaming bundle of mortal meat. It's an old bond forged in something older than blood. I heal because he stays. I live because he refuses to leave. I sometimes suspect he only does so, not leave, just out of spite. The angels that had battered us had done a proper job. 5 of them, radiant bastards glowing like they'd swallowed the sun and found it agreeable. You don't really expect angels to fight dirty. It's more of a demon thing. Turns out celestial beings are quite happy to stab you in the spleen if they think you've broken a divine parking regulation. Michael himself had led the charge. You never forget that smell of ozone and burning feathers. They'd called me, rightly, an abomination, and I'd just enough breath to left to call him a self-righteous glowstick. He was right. I am an abomination. I don't really fit into this world. Well, I should say we do not fit into this world, Finn and I. We do not fit because we are werewolf, and also because I've been at the doors of heaven and the doors of hell and been refused entry to both. I'm not sure who won the, should we call it an argument between, me and the celestial bastards. Well, that's not true. I definitely lost more blood than them, but it was not all one-sided. One of the God-blessed turkeys will find it challenging to fly properly with the considerable amount of feathers and flesh I ripped from his wings, I tell you. Angel wings are pretty tasty. I tried to move again and the pain flared like, bad jazz in my nervous system. My body, it heals fast, usually faster than the mind can keep up, but this time the magic that feeds that recovery felt clogged, gummed up like trying to run a miracle through a drain pipe full of holy water. Something wasn't right.
They burned the tether.
Fen whispered, his voice low and dangerous, recognising my ill ease.
They reached between us and struck at the binding. They wanted us apart. But the bastards, well, they couldn't do it. No, my magic is older and not born of them. But they have weakened Link a bit.
I didn't answer. He was right, and I could feel it, that faint tremor where his essence met mine, frayed at the edges. It's like having your shadow threaten to pack its bags and leave. The fire popped. A log gave up and collapsed into embers. Somewhere beyond the door I heard footsteps, soft ones, too light for the professor. And then she appeared in an instant at the doorway. Vaughn. She's the, professor's housekeeper, though. That title undersold her in the same way calling the ocean slightly damp might. All the years I'd known her, she had looked 20-something, with her skin as pale as candle wax. Her hair was black and as sharp as a crow's wing, a perfect mohawk. Now, I can honestly say I would never consider that a perfect style, the mohawk on anyone, but on her it wasn't just perfect, but, big word, quintessentially necessary. The Victorian-esque maid's outfit she wore was less a uniform and more a masterclass in strategic disclosure, a paradox of service and dominance stitched together in black. You should know, listening to this podcast, that I enjoy tailoring a fashion to a level that most would hold as obsessive. She was the genuine alternative to fashion, but so beautifully alternative that it worked so well. Her dress was a truncated thing of ribbed black velvet, so short it seemed to be a mere memory of a hemline, a whisper against the top of her thighs. Underneath, giving it an almost revealing volume, were a number of short white petticoats, ripped lace tattered to perfection. On others, it would look ridiculous. On her, it was, well, again, that word, I have to use it, perfect. The mock of a uniform was cinched at the waist by a corset of black satin, its boning a deliberate architecture that sculpted her torso into an hourglass, making every breath she took a visible, tantalising event. I was what we call in Manchester, gobsmacked. Speechless, just lying there and admiring her like I would some cliched sculpture of Michelangelo. But the thing that got me, or should I say the pair of things that got me, the anchor of the entire dizzying composition, was the footwear. Thigh-high, and I mean thigh-high, Doc Martens. I know it doesn't seem like they should be the standout part of the outfit, nor dare I say it, glamorous, or even perhaps, should I say, sexy, but they were polished to a liquid obsidian shine. They were brutalist and practical, these stomping pillars of leather and lace rising to meet the fleeting shadow of the lace and velvet ensemble with a stark, authoritative presence. The gap between the top of the boots and the hem of the velvet dress was a mere hand's breadth of sheer black ripped stocking, a dark window into a mystery that was both offered and fiercely protected. It was the nexus of the entire silhouette, a focal point of devastating tension where softness met immutable strength, creating a pendulum of allure that swung with every step that she took. The jingle of the silver chains on her hips was the soundtrack to this beautiful, walking contradiction. I had to look away as she walked. There are certain things even a werewolf can't control when things like her provoke it. I struggled and won over my manhood, so I looked at her again. She had paused to allow me to see her in full effect. She knew what she was doing. Unlike most supernatural beauties, this effect did not come from a glamour, the kind of spell that's placed upon you. No, this was just her. She knew what she was doing, and I both hated that and sort of liked it. She gave me a slight twirl before turning back to meet my worshipping gaze with a coy smile, followed by a delicious bite of her blood-red lower lip. "Jesus, woman," I said aloud. She gave me a silent knowing giggle, knowing her powers. Fen was laughing his bollocks off and in good humour now at my discomfort. That lip bite was a terrible weapon in her hands. That should be banned by the bloody Geneva Convention. Okay, I know. Just let me wax a little more lyrical on the woman. Well, she wasn't a woman. Well, she was a woman, but she was also a werecat. It is worth the next, few musings to build her into the deserving monster she really was. Her beauty wasn't, well, I don't think it was of this century, but something excavated, a reinvention of Victorian mourning and alley cat sharpness. Each side of her head below her perfectly sharp hairstyle was shaved and decorated with whorls and patterns of tattoos that I knew continued all down her neck and covered her entire body from top to bottom. Distracting. I mean, I'd not seen them, but I just knew. Her face was a pale, perfect oval, a canvas of alabaster upon which she'd painted her own striking hieroglyphics. The kohl that rimmed her eyes was sharp enough to draw blood, elongating their shape into something distinctly, unnervingly feline. Of course, feline. And her eyes, they were the true marvel of that face, a luminous moss agate green. They held the same unblinking, knowing stillness as a cat's. They were the eyes of a creature that saw the world not as a series of objects, but as a collection of shifting, half-hidden truths. They saw through me, not past me. They peeled back the layers of my injuries and my quiet desperation with a single, languid glance. A delicate silver ring, a tiny glint of polished ice pierced one nostril, and from her ears an assortment of black studs and silver chains dangled like occult charms. She was a sphinx in a maid's costume, and her gaze was the riddle. She didn't speak. Vaughn never did. The professor said she'd lost her voice as a child. He had found her somewhere in the Carpathians when a local village had gone on the hunt for her. He'd rescued her, for that is his want, or would it be collected her? Depends on your interpretation of her rescue. I tried to sit up, instantly regretted it, and decided I could in fact deliver any necessary heroics from a horizontal position. Vaunt glided closer. Fenrir growled inside me, a low rumbling distrust that made my teeth ache. Well, he would. It's a werecat, innit?
She smells of silver and moonlight. Be wary.
He hissed in my head. She also smells of antiseptic and coffee, I returned, which means she's probably here to help, Fen. Vaunt gave me one of her small, unreadable smiles and continued to sinuate her way towards the bed. She placed an espresso coffee cup, deliciously smelling, delicately on the bedside table. In her other hand, she held a basin, steam curling from it like ghostly breath, and a folded towel was slung on her arm. Without ceremony, she just sat beside me, dipped the cloth into the water, and pulled at the sheet covering my embarrassment. Me? Embarrassed? What the She met my eyes and reassured me, a silent giggle, and then pulled the sheet hard, revealing all of me to the room. I was shocked. I almost covered myself with my hands, but managed to turn the movement into something like I was trying to get into a more comfortable position. She knew exactly what was going on. She shook her head and looked my body up and down, observing all of it. Sadly, not in a seductive or sexy manner, but as though she was a very competent medical practitioner, which she was. She sucked her teeth, and her smile turned into a frown as she looked back at me and then shook her head. Those eyes were actually full of concern. She nodded at the towel she held. What? Oh, this was to get my consent for her procedure. I had to think of it as a procedure, because if I just thought of this, beautiful woman washing my skin dressed like that with warm water, then, well, as I said before, that would be incredibly embarrassing. Again, I never get embarrassed. What the hell is going on? I nodded my consent, and she began.
Think of naked, Margaret Thatcher. That should keep you soft.
The wolf soul said, laughing in my head. I ignored him, but used Margaret, in the precise manner he recommended. It worked. The warmth hit my skin, sharp and clean, and for a moment all I could do was exhale. Her fingers were deft, precise. She cleaned the burns and the stitched wounds with a surgeon's calm, ignoring the low growl that occasionally escaped from my throat. Or maybe it was from Fen's, who knows. Some of the wounds were actually still bloody. I watched her work, half-dazed, half aware of the thousand small things that didn't add up about her. The faint purring hum in the air when she moved, the way shadows seemed to linger around her shape, the fact that she double-winked, never blinked. One eye would close and open, and then instantly the second would follow. Professor keeping you busy? I asked, because silence felt heavier than, the excellent sheets. She looked at me, placed a towel on my chest, pressed her index finger to my lips, and admonished me with a shake of her head that set her jewellery to a pleasant tinkle. The gesture said, "You should be resting, stop talking before you bleed again." "Rightio, I got it," I told her. I let my head fall back against the pillow. The ceiling above me was cracked into elegant patterns like a map of all the places I'd rather be. Fenrir stirred again, restless.
We should not be here. The angels will hunt again. They will come for the professor next. He meddles in their theatre.
He meddles in everyone's theatre, I replied to this internal conversation. It's kind of what he does. Besides, if anyone can talk an angel out of smiting him, it's Simon de Bloody Montford. He once convinced a demon to pay rent.
Still, we should kill something soon.
The wolf was pissed. I tell you what, Fen, rest first, revenge later. Priorities, I told him. Vaunt wrung out the cloth, her movements neat and almost ritualistic. I noticed faint scars on her wrists, fine silver lines that glinted when the fire caught them. No, not the scars of self-harm or, attempted suicide. They were scars of old magic, binding rules. She must have seen me looking because she gave me a slight conspirational smirk as if to say, we've all got our own monsters, don't we? I chuckled, which hurt, which made me stop. When she finished, she placed a kiss briefly on my forehead. A simple gesture, but something passed between us. Not warmth exactly, but calm, a silencing of the storm inside my skin. And then she was gone. She must have vanished back through the door as silently as she'd come, leaving behind her the faint scent of iron and lavender and secrets. I lay there for a while, listening to the fire mutter and Fenrir pace inside my skull. It kind of occurred to me, not for the first time, that I might be the luckiest damned monster in England. I'd fought angels and lived, had a wolf for a soul, and a professor who collected lost creatures like this as curiosities for his cabinet. But as the pain ebbed and the darkness crept in around the edges, I couldn't shake one thought. If angels were hunting now, then something worse was already on its way. The next time, I might not wake in a warm room with a fire and a cat-eyed nurse. Next time it might be the dark that found me first.
The Professor's Briefing. You'll have to trust me when I tell you there are few circles of hell more insidious than a Monday morning Zoom meeting. And I say that as a man who has, on more than one occasion, been to hell. Professionally speaking, you understand. It's much the same, really. Fire, brimstone, poor audio quality, and at least one participant whose camera is permanently pointed at their ceiling fan. On my screen this morning were the familiar faces of Britain's least celebrated line of defence against the impossible. The Supernatural Defence Force, the Supernatural Police Department, and a smattering of independent contractors whose official titles ranged from Special Investigator to the thing that cleans up after things. Front and centre was Detective Ben Johnson, looking as if he hadn't slept since forever, which, given recent events in Walthamstow, was perfectly understandable. Beside him sat Detective Sula Abda, who had perfected the expression of a woman who'd seen too much and hadn't been impressed by any of it. Her mug, emblazoned with the message, "World's Least Shockable Detective," steamed quietly. She'd always had a different musing on her mug at every meeting. How many mugs could one woman have? At least she took her coffee seriously, though. I respected that. In the next square along was Wing Commander Montgomery Fortescue, resplendent in uniform, sunglasses glinting. I'll tell you all about the reason those sunglasses are always needed at some point, but that's for another day. His posture was straight enough to shame a lamppost. He had the look of a man who'd shot at dragons before breakfast and been disappointed with the quality of the sport, which in the case of Hitler's black attack dragons of 42, he pretty much was. The others, a scattering of analysts, field operatives, and what I think was a banshee consultant from the Dublin office, blinked back at me with varying degrees of caffeinated despair. I cleared my throat. Right. Good morning, everyone, or good whatever time of day you've lost track of. I appreciate your attendance on short notice. We have, I'm afraid, several matters of considerable gravity to discuss. A pause as someone's dog barked in the background. The Banshee consultant sneezed and apologized in Gaelic. Firstly, I continued, I am now in possession of a rather unpleasant volume. Ben leaned forward.
The book?
Yes, the book, I confirmed. Given to me, and I use that term loosely, by none other than the Archangel Michael himself. It appeared in my study yesterday afternoon, unannounced, and with no regard for personal boundaries or the structural integrity of my curtains. Sula raised an eyebrow.
Michael, the Michael?
Indeed, I said. Wings, glow, faint odor of divine self-righteousness. Very much the original article, if you ask me. He was quite insistent that I take possession of this tome. It is, he claims, designed to end the reign of Satan. And rather disturbingly, if that were not disturbing enough, to remove her from hell entirely. That caused a small silence, which on a Zoom call feels like an eternity of pixelated blinking. The wing commander coughed.
What? Remove her, Professor? As in delete the dear lady? I don't think she will allow that, old chap.
She's already made her feelings obvious to me, Monty, old man. She can do nothing but hope we're going to help her. Again, the rock classic came to my mind. Sympathy for the devil. If we carry out this ritual, it will cause her eviction. Expunge her, strike her from the record. Which, given Satan's somewhat resilient nature, is a task roughly equivalent to removing ink from the concept of paper. I gave all the watchers a moment as this sank into many minds.
Fuck.
Ben swore under his breath, emotively. Sula simply sipped her coffee, looking on, blankly. I smiled at the incongruity of them. Perhaps being opposites made them the team they were. The book, I went on, is written in a language I've not seen before, which is rather saying something. But nonetheless, I appear to be able to read it. The wing commander did one of his famous British huffs at this statement. Not a noise of irritation, but a noise of confusion. He was a bright chap, but lived in a modern world that simply confused him. It hums very faintly when you touch it, and I'm not ashamed to admit that it made the mirrors in my study whisper for nearly 10 minutes before I could shut them up. Michael wishes me to perform the ritual contained within it. He believes that doing so will finally end the war below.
And will it?
Asked Sula, her tone straightforward and seeming not to care. Oh, it most certainly will, I replied. The problem, my dear, is that I'm not entirely convinced which side it will end for. There was a brief interruption as the wing commander attempted to unmute himself.
The honourable contraption! There we are. Professor, might I ask, what has this to do with our little sort of supermarket tragedy in Walthamstow? Banky, put Marmaduke back in the kitchen, dear. It's bothering the postman again.
Ah, yes, I said, warming to my subject. Detective Johnson here was kind enough to brief me on the matter. 4 victims, ritualistic mutilation, and what appears to be a summoning of no small ambition. What particularly concerns me is that among the detritus from that ritual, the blood, the sigils, the faint smell of regret, there was found a single angelic feather. Now that caused a stir. Even on a digital screen you could feel the shift. Faces froze, eyes widened. Someone whispered something unprintable. Yes, I said grimly. A genuine article. Ben assures me he examined it personally, which raises a rather chilling question. What in God's name, quite literally, was an angel doing participating in a ritual designed to breach the veil? And more to the point, why on earth was it left behind? Sula frowned.
Could it have been a trap? Something meant to draw us in?
Possibly, though I'm inclined to think it was part of the ritual itself. You don't use angelic matter lightly. It's the magical equivalent of detonating a nuke to light a candle. The wing commander grunted.
So, we've got angels, devils, and ritual murderers all mucking about in the north of London. Marvellous. Anyone bringing biscuits to the apocalypse, or shall we just starve in an orderly fashion?
He smiled as he crunched on a hobnob, the chocolate variety. Nobody laughed. I adjusted my glasses. I am, as you might imagine, rather disinclined to perform the ritual Michael requested until we understand precisely what the consequences might be. I had hoped one of you might have some insight into that. Blank faces. A few shrugged shoulders. Someone's connection dropped. Bloody hell. Utterly splendid, I sighed. The fate of cosmic balance rests in our hands, and not one of us has a theory. Ben, Sula, you've both seen more supernatural horror than most libraries. Nothing between you? Ben shook his head.
Professor, whatever happened in that supermarket, it weren't human, and it weren't demonic either. It felt off like, I don't know, something divine trying to play by infernal rules.
That, I said, is precisely what I was afraid of. We lingered in silence. The fire in my office crackled softly. It seemed to me the only honest sound in the world. Finally, I nodded. Very well then. Keep your teams on high alert. If there's even a whisper of celestial interference in your cases, I want to know. I'll continue examining the book. Perhaps, I hesitated for just a moment. Perhaps I'll consult an old friend. The wing commander tilted his head.
You don't mean Ernest.
I absolutely do, I said. If anyone knows the etiquette for telling an archangel to sod off, it's Ernest Wainwright. That earned a few smiles.
Give him my best and tell him knight to bishop 4 for our game, thank you,
said Monty. I smiled and nodded, my thoughts already elsewhere. I ended the call with the gentle click of a mouse and the faint echo of digital farewells. The screen went black, and for a long while I simply stared at my own reflection. The tired man who stared back, looking rather too much like someone halfway to becoming one of his own case studies. The book lay open on the desk before me. Its pages shifted faintly, as if stirred by a wind that wasn't really there. The symbols moved when you weren't looking, like shy insects. Ernest, 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 I muttered, reaching for the phone. Let's see what you make of these shenanigans. The line rang once, twice. Then a voice, rich, amused, and just faintly dangerous, answered me.
Simon, my dear fellow, to what do I owe the pleasure? Or is it, perhaps, a warning?
I smiled grimly. Both, I'm afraid, my old friend. Both. We appear to have an angel problem.